Hi, everybody. I'm Joe Bailey, and welcome to my podcast, Thriving in the Eye of the Hurricane. I'm doing this podcast because I want to introduce people to some of the people I've worked with and interviewed or who have influenced me in writing this book, and whose stories are of their own transformation, and in this case today, the transformation of the communities that they worked with, how that has inspired me to write this book. Sydney Banks, back in the 1970s, had a profound enlightenment experience that has led to a paradigm shift in the field of psychology, community revitalization, social work, resiliency training, prevention, many different fields. And so in my book, I'm trying to share just a little bit of a sample of how this understanding is rippling through the planet. At our last conference in London, we had people from 38 countries in every possible profession, in many languages being translated. It was just so inspiring to see how this is going on. We have someone from Thailand on our call. I see Nikon is here from Thailand, who I was on his podcast last week or maybe the week before. But today I'm especially excited to introduce you to three of my friends, Lloyd Fields, up there in the left corner, at least on my computer, and Cynthia Stennis, who both worked at the Modello Project south of Miami in Florida. And I personally got to see that program and watch it grow and watch it transform. And when Dr. Roger Mills, who was really the instigator of the Modello Project, he was a community psychologist and took the principles into communities like Modello. It was a very typical housing project with a lot of poverty, a lot of crime, a lot of truancy. The buildings were, not painted. There was a lot of trash in the streets. There was a lot of violence and all the things that we often find in challenging communities. And as Roger started with a small group of people teaching the three principles and what was called health realization to that community, you began to see as they changed from within in their own self, that they began to transform how they related to their children. Their kids started going back to school. Their parenting changed. They started going to PTA meetings, and one even ran for political office. They started being a contributor to the community. And little by little, that community's crime rate went down, the drug dealers left, and even the physical presence of the community transformed. There wasn't the graffiti on the walls. People fixed up their yards. They started planting gardens. They picked up the trash. Kids felt safe to play there. It was truly a remarkable thing to see that happen. And later, many years later, Dr. Jack Pransky wrote a book about Modello that won the Martin Luther King Award for My Beloved Community Award for one of the greatest stories about transformation in a high-risk community. And they were also featured on the Today Show with Brian Gumbel. Janet Reno came and visited, who was the Attorney General, and it got recognition by the President Clinton at the time. So that was one program. Then Cynthia and Lloyd, who were in kind of the pioneers in this, and so I'll let them tell about their story. But that the word got out about that, and Beverly Wilson, who was on the very first podcast, they talked about her work in Oakland, California, Homestead Gardens, and another project that she worked in there with the same results. And that started because the mayor of Oakland heard about what was happening in Modello. and was inspired to bring that project to Oakland that had the highest murder rate, the fourth highest murder rate in the country. And after 2 years in the project, they had 0 homicides. So the impact of the principles is far and wide, but this is one of the most dramatic stories. There's been other programs in the Bronx, which Joyce Davis is here from the Bronx in New York to talk about her program that she was part of in New York City and the transformation there. But there have been other programs in Mississippi and South Carolina, Des Moines, Iowa, Minneapolis, Chicago, working with the gang programs there. So the principles have had a tremendous impact on people in what you would consider some of the most challenging of situations to come in. And I am so honored to introduce the three of you to tell your stories. Lloyd, I've known for a long time. Maybe start with you, Lloyd. Is a social worker and has worked in many other areas after he left Modello in human services, and taken this understanding with him in those settings as well. But I'll let him introduce and talk about what he has done there. And Cynthia Stennis, the two of them were sidekicks in Modello. And Cynthia, I don't know if you still live in that neck of the woods or not, but and Cynthia, maybe you and Joyce can unmute when you speak. But just want to lastly just say that when you listen to their stories, you want to just see the common thread, the underpinnings or the underlying foundation of their stories, and how if you've been to some of my other podcasts, you'll hear this common thread of people realizing that their experience is coming from the inside out. It's not coming from out there. And that realization that the power of our mind, the power of thought, and the power of consciousness is what brings us our unique separate reality of whatever experiences that we're going through in life. And the more that we realize, the more that like Roger Mills used to call it, the beach ball of resilience floats to the top. It's not being held down by our negative thinking. So we'll have just a conversation and invite you as the listeners who are here with us today to participate after they've had a chance to share and ask them questions. So I look forward to hearing what they have to say. Do any of you feel inspired to go first? Or since I've got Lloyd already unmuted, do you want to go first? No pressure, Lloyd, no pressure.
No pressure. It's a lot of pressure because I'm seeing some people. And, you know, it's so funny when people ask me to speak on, you know, Modello, and mind you, to me, it's sort of like, you know, you're asking me to speak about something that happened 30 years ago. And it's like, you know, I have to take my Prevagen just to keep all the details, you know.
Yeah.
But I see Keith Blevins is right. Keith Blevins. Oh my goodness. You know, it's like, you know, it just takes you back, and then you start getting all emotional. And you know, me, I'm an emotional person. Sometimes I cry. So, but I don't feel the feeling at this moment, but it could come. So if it comes, you know, just kind of dismiss it, you know, because that's, you know, who I am. I'm, you know.
All feelings are welcome, Lloyd. Okay. All feelings are welcome.
So I don't know where to start. I mean, I started as the Dr. Bill's guinea pig social worker that didn't know anything, you know. So, and I basically, you know, I started green. But I think that was probably the best thing for me, the best thing that could have ever happened to me. He asked me. I was working for a local bank in Miami, at the time. I had a degree in social work, and my wife's aunt worked in Modello actually before me. She worked in the nursery school there. And Dr. Mills was looking for a green social worker or somebody who had the degree in social work that was green, and he, he was looking for somebody who would be willing to, take the training and the what was it, health realization then?
Yeah.
It was called health realization.
Yeah.
And I said, sure. For some reason, my boss at the bank said, yeah, go ahead and try it. And I did a training, not with him, but with, I want to say, if I remember correctly, Darlene Stewart. You probably remember them, Darlene Stewart and
Kimberly Cadu, maybe?
who?
Kimberly Cadu, perhaps?
No, not Kimberly, Suarez.
Rick Suarez.
Rick Suarez and Darlene Stewart and her husband, and they did the actual training. Dr. Mills didn't really do the academic training, if you will. And I was like caught hook, line, and sinker the first day. I mean, like, it's got to be, it was so great compared to all the other modalities that they teach you in school, in formal college or whatever. This was like, oh my God, to me. And then, after I took the training, it was a week training. And he asked me if I would like to work in the housing projects, and I said sure. And I asked him what did he want me to do. He said just get to know the children. I said okay. Then I had a pen and a big pad and pen and everything, trying to get the notes and try to figure out what else to do. And he said no, just get to know the children. I said okay, what else? And he said no, just get to know the children. Just get to know the kids. And I'm like, really? Yeah, okay. So and when I went there, of course, Modello was like a place I've never seen before. I've never seen, I've been seen housing projects and all that kind of stuff, but the day I started was like, I think it was like a Wednesday or a Thursday, the very first day. And I went there. I was supposed to meet Dr. Mills at about 11 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning. And when I got there, it looked like summertime, and I'm from the north, so I'm from Ohio. So this was like, it was November in the day, and there's kids all around, and I'm like, what is there? Is this a holiday or something? And I'm just, I'm just noticing. I just see kids all around. So I go in to they had a store right in the center of the projects. That's where the center of all the activity, where Dr. Mills was supposed to see me. And I went in there and I said, well, Doc, I mean, it's like, is this a special holiday or something? He said, no. I said, because there's kids running around. I mean, from where I'm from, you would never see that, during a school day. You just, because we had, where I'm from, you had truancy officers everywhere. And the last person you would ever want to see is a truant officer. But there, it was I don't know, it was just so weird, just so, I don't know, just weird. So anyway, and that same day I met Virene, which she was my she was my first sidekick. She's since have transitioned on a couple years back. I met her, and then I had some other experiences that I was like, just blown away with. Not positive at the time, but it was just an eye opener. But thank goodness for Virene, that she kind of like helped me get, just help me see the people there in a different light. And I think my understanding of that time of the principles just helped me that much more. I had the impression, or not the impression, but the tenacity. I was gung ho to really be in service to help the kids down there, and the families down there. But what I saw was just something that it was just something that I've never seen before. Yeah. So
Lloyd, it sounds, sorry to interrupt, it sounds like you walked into something that was like, whoa, this is a whole new thing that I
no, it wasn't whoa, it was whoa.
It was whoa, yeah. But your understanding helped you hang in there, not give up.
Yeah, and the other thing, the odd thing about that was it wasn't. It was like, okay, I can do this. I could do this. It was just shocking to see some things just kind of like not in what you would normally see, even if, like I said, I've been into projects before, but not like, not with the same kind of dynamics as this, as this particular one, as Modello. And it was a different world. It was just a different world. But the people were just great. They were wonderful people. I mean, even at the beginning, even from what I saw and everything, and getting to know Virene, and Virene introduced me to all the tenants there, and I could tell, which was kind of funny to me, that I was like a fish out of water. Like, they knew that as soon as they met me, they knew that I was not I was not from that area.
You're not a resident of.
I was not even a resident. I wasn't even from the state. They absolutely knew it already. But nobody took offense to it and everything. But it was a wonderful experience. I mean, from day one, it was work. It was a lot of work, and eye-opening situations throughout that first year and second year. It was a lot of work. But the people that I've met were just everybody was genuine. Everybody.
How did things change, Lloyd, over the course of your time there?
When you say how,
not how did they change, but how did it look different? What was kind of the before and the after of Modello?
Well, I think, with our program and with the grant that Dr. Mills got for Modello and Homestead, they wanted particular benchmarks, like they wanted truancy to go down substantially. They wanted grades to go up. They wanted the crime rate to go down. They wanted more interaction between the kids and the school system there, and all of that happened. You know, as a matter of fact, it happened the first year. You know, I mean, you know, we helped the kids with the kids that I worked with. They only gave me allowed me to work with the middle school, and because they had other programs that worked, the other program that worked with the elementary and the senior high kids. And I was the first year was only allowed to was earmarked to work with the middle school.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing that was different was we taught, you know, the principals, and long story short, the grades went up substantially. I mean, way up. I mean, the benchmark averages for all the kids in the middle school went up substantially by year's end. You know, I started in November. By spring, you know, virtually all the kids were passing. I said virtually all. I'm sure there was some straggler somewhere. But the truancy was close to nil, which was monumental in that area. And that was just you know, that was considered by the grant benchmarks, that was considered major. But I think the other thing that that what you're asking is those other things that the intangible things where people started to value education. They started to value interactions with the school system. They started to value the interactions with other social service agencies there, like the police department. And people started to value their own lives in a way that we did not set the grant for. You started seeing people taking responsibility for their lives and seeing their lives in a totally different light. So, you know, I know, I mean, we could talk about this for, you know, a couple of weeks still, but I'm just trying to just throw out the little stuff. And like I said, that was the first year. The first year we was just trying to get help kids to, you know, be more engaged in school, which they were. Be more engaged with school, for the teachers to become more engaged positively with the families in Modello and Homestead.
So you work with the schools as well. You work with
Absolutely. I was given the task not only to work with the kids in the projects, but I was also given the task to go into the school and work in and along with the counselors there and the teachers there. I could go into the classroom, sit and monitor, you know, the dynamics of the classroom, all of that. It was a wonderful thing. It was a wonderful chance to do that kind of stuff where I could actually sit and just watch the dynamics of a classroom dynamics. I did a lot of talking with the teachers on a personal level. Of course, Dr. Mills did some training with the teachers and the school and the teachers in that particular school and the principals, the administrators and everything. So it was kind of like a wraparound kind of attack when in terms of teaching the principles. We're
Right.
teaching the principles to the children, to the parents, to all the social service agencies who had an ear to hear.
So it was really working with the whole community.
It was wraparound.
Yeah.
Wraparound.
Well, Lloyd, I want to give Cynthia a chance to kind of give her viewpoint on, I think you were a resident, Cynthia, originally, right? But you need to unmute yourself, Cynthia.
Resident in Homestead Gardens.
In Homestead
Okay.
Gardens, right?
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah, so thanks, Lloyd, for sharing all that. That was really helpful. But it would be helpful to hear Cynthia's viewpoint, kind of growing up in that area, right?
Yes. At the time, I was working with the YWCA as a director of Modello Daycare. And as Lloyd said, that the kids were supposed to be in school, which they should have been in school, but at Homestead Gardens, it wasn't like that. The kids were in school. I was able to start working with Dr. Mills when I guess he kind of watched me to see what type of person I was, how I had the communication with the parents when they bring the kids in and things of that nature. And I guess he liked me, so he asked me if I would like to work with him, working with Modello, with the parents and the kids, and what I like to see, some positive things to happen there. And of course I did. And he invited me to come to their parenting class at that time. In Modello, they had their own, they called it a PTA meeting. The parents pretty much was taking control by the time I started. Lloyd did they did the groundwork. By the time I started, little things were already in play. And I was glad that he invited me to those same parents that brought the kids in, who will come in with black eyes or coming in with, with their night clothes on and not caring for themselves, on drugs, alcoholics, whatever the case may be. And I went into the class and stood in the back so I can, see what was going on. Why would these same parents that I had been seeing changing within months, coming in smelling good, keep the hair looking good, the kids were dressing better. So of course I wanted to see what was going on. And the parents took over the parenting class, talking about the communication that they were having with the teachers at the school. They were giving information, who to talk to if they having a problem with their kids and things in that nature. So after having a couple of meetings with Dr. Mills, he wanted to go to a different housing development. They had enough money, with the grant money to go to another development. And I told him that I lived in Homestead Gardens, and it was like a 15 minutes away from them, if he can come there. So we started there. And the first thing he told me, like he told Lloyd, get to know the people who you in your community, where you live at, get their names, ask them what do they want to see change in their community and things in that nature. And lo and behold, by the time I started knocking on doors, half of the people I went to school with, or I knew them, or they were relatives, because you pretty much mind your own business, in Homestead Garden. You don't get into other people's business or whatever the case may be. So after I asked them what all they wanted to see change, and they didn't believe that whatever we was going to do was going to change, because they were complaining about other agencies would come in and promise them this, promise them that, never came through with it. So I say, well, I tell you what, I will always throw it back to you, throw it back to them, as Dr. Mills say, because they come up with their own ideas. We have to trust that they have their own understanding of how things should run, their own Oh, I'm so sorry. I only make wisdom to know how they can do things. And they said, okay, if you want these parents to get here, you need to have some food. And I say, what kind of food? You better have some chicken, some collard greens, some cornbread, the whole Sunday dinner. And I said to myself, what? And she said, yes. And I said, how am I supposed to do that? And they started, and like Dr. Mills said, they already know how to get things done in their community and how to change. You have to give it back to them. So they started naming people who knew how to do certain things, and we would give them the money to go and purchase it and cook it or whatever. And lo and behold, I asked them what day they wanted to have it. They wanted to have it on a Saturday. We didn't work the weekends, but you have to do what you got to do to try to get these parents to be, to participate, to get the ball running. And we had a good Sunday dinner, good time. People came, just about all of them, 80% of them. Didn't they, Lloyd?
I think they used to say the fourth principle was food.
We only put up 20 chairs. We had to go and get more chairs, and they brought their kids, they brought everybody in. So that's how we started. We laid the foundation down with food. And once they came in, we didn't say anything. We didn't have an agenda. Everybody was talking to each other. Girl, I didn't know you lived in the front. I didn't know you lived in the back. We just kept quiet. We listened. We found out who didn't talk too much. We found out who was the leader. We found out who was the person that get the ball running. We found out who don't mind walking and knocking on doors. That's what Dr. Mills wanted us to do. Find out the leaders in different areas or whatever, so we can approach them and ask them basically, how can we get this community change? Another thing was a good gold nugget is that we brought parents from Modello. And they came and told them what was going on in Modello, how Modello changed. And majority of them knew Modello, and they couldn't believe that Modello kids were going back to school. They couldn't believe that the parents were even going and, getting GEDs. So those parents came to Homestead Garden and told them their own personal stories, what happened to them and how they changed and how that their family was doing very well. And after that, the ball was running. We got our own student tenant council, teenagers from middle school and high school. They started their own little group. The parents, invited the city of Homestead to come down to have their own town hall meeting in Homestead Garden, which they didn't trust that, but they had to come and do it to see what was going on. They couldn't believe that a housing development wanted to have a town hall meeting. If you had went outside, you saw police officers at every exit because they thought that they was going to be set up. So once the parents they did the meeting with the tenant council, with the commissioners city councils, and let them know what the problems they were having. Making a long story short, the parents started taking care of themselves. They started getting things done. They met with the maintenance, with HUD, telling them what they needed to do, and the show went on.
Well, wow, that's what I love from both of you guys is what I'm hearing is that you went in there and you met people where they were at, and you saw that they had their own answers, that you saw, you worked with the health in them, the health realization, and you brought that out, what was already there. You didn't put anything into them that they didn't already have.
Right.
And that's the true meaning of empowerment. When we talk a lot about empowerment, but what you guys saw, because of your own understanding, you listened to people, you respected people, you asked people for how do they need help, what do they want to change, And I imagine a lot of the professionals that came in and worked with those communities were there to try to fix what was wrong with them,
Mm-hmm.
rather than help them find their own solutions. So
Mm-hmm.
I see that in all the projects that I've heard about, whether it's in Mississippi or the Bronx or wherever. And I'm just the timekeeper here is part of my role. So I want to shift gears and go to New York now, all the way from Miami to New York
Mm-hmm.
with Joyce to talk. But thank you both for sharing your unique perspectives on Modello and Homestead Gardens and what happened there. I know people can feel from your energy just uh, the miracles that happened there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then we'll come back at the end and you have a chance to make other comments if you want, but I'd like to give Joyce a chance to share.
Thank you.
Every now and then you're going to hear acorns drop on my skylight. It may sound like a bomb, but it's just an acorn.
Thank you. Coming after Lloyd and Cynthia, my goodness gracious. But I'm delighted to be here. First of all, thank you for having me. And as you said, Joe, there is a thread that goes through this whole principle, these principles, health realizations, the three principles, whatever you want to call it. There is a thread that goes to the whole point as I see it, and as I have come to digest. The helper has to be healthy. If the helper, the person who is trying to help and make things happen, if that person is not healthy, it doesn't work. As you also said, the communities that we're talking about, and the Bronx was no different. The communities that we're talking about, they're people who have minds and thoughts and families and life and who want the same thing that everybody else wants. The biggest piece is the transformation of the mind. The other piece is also seeing the person who's helping have to see these people whole. And if you can't, if you're bickering between the people who think they got it all together and the people who don't have it all together, as that war, it doesn't happen. And whatever happened, if you listen and hear it, you'll see it, because it's not that far-fetched. It really isn't. How we got started in the Bronx, and I want to take you back a little bit. I'm not going to take up a lot of time because the time is fastly going. But I do want to say that when my family moved from Harlem to the Bronx, we thought we were moving on up. So for years and years and years and years, the Bronx was a beautiful borough with parks and people who were working and doing some wonderful things. And we owned a house. My mother bought a house, and we saw her face. She went up there with $50, left Harlem, single parent. My father had died. I was 8 years old. By the time we was 12, we moved from Harlem to the Bronx because we thought we was moving on up. We went about our lives. We were doing things and everything was happening. We moved to a bigger house. We thought even a better neighborhood, the whole thing. So I say all of this to say that if you're going about your life and soon one day you wake up and what you see is madness, no longer were the street lights working, no longer were there post office places to put your mail, no longer was there a street that was clean and neat. All of a sudden, although you own this home and you and your family, the street corners were full of drugs. The corners were sold. People bought and paid thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for those four corners. The police was all in it. In fact, they were paying the police for those corners. And what they had was these aluminum cans, the garbage cans, in the wintertime. And they would put paper and wood in there so that the fire would burn, so that they would not stand out in the cold. And there was lines around the block. People selling drugs in our community. And here you are working, trying to keep your family together and trying to do all the things that you're trying to do. And all of a sudden you wake up one day and you see this is where you are. We began to organize and unify and come together as a community. We had a guy we call the angel of hope, because our community was called Mount Hope. And they sent this guy who was a community organizer. Here he was, a white guy in this Black community. And I said, what does he think he's gonna do? What is he? How? What? I mean, who is he? And he was, I mean, he was as nice he could be. And I fell in love with him because I saw hope in him. Because you have to remember, I'm paying taxes on this house and I can't live right. My mother was living in the house as well, and we're not safe. The police are not doing their job. The people are not doing what they're supposed to do. The whole thing was a mess. I was working for corporate America in marketing and sales. And I was going to be leaving the job soon. And they said, come really be with us and come work with us in the community. And I did that. But my head was someplace else. I wasn't as healthy as I thought I was. I really wasn't, because I couldn't see this. I couldn't see how anybody would not send their children to school. I could not see why people couldn't. I couldn't see it. I could not see why people didn't understand that they had a decent place to live, or it had been, and now it's not. No curtains at the windows, the whole thing. How come we can't live better than this? So I went thinking I could make a difference. They looked at me like, who do you think you are? Forget about the white man. Look at me, who was Black like they were, who came in there with what I thought I was talking about. And they said, oh, no. No, this is not going to work. We ended up, though, getting, I'm going to make this story short as I can. We ended up getting some funders. And this lady said that she would take 6 organizations, and ours was one of them. And she'd get some funding, and she would work in all of these communities. She happened to see on television, evidently it was Lloyd's program and all the other programs, because she saw Dr. Mills on this television. And she said that she had found this man, Dr. Mills, and he would, if she would pay for it, her organization would pay for him coming to our community. And she said, if we wanted it, if we would be open to receiving it, that she would pay for it. Her organization would do that. And here comes Dr. Mills. We said, okay, we'll talk to him. And he said some things that got my head going. And I, at that point, was the director of this program. And I'm saying, maybe this can work. He used words like mind, consciousness, thought, and renewing and transformation of the mind. Now, I'm a church girl, so I had heard about the transformation of the mind, but I could not go into that organization preaching. I couldn't get the Bible or the details in the Bible or the book to go back and say to them. But the program that was put together through the Health Realization Group, and now the 3 principles, we were able to hear and to see and to feel a change. There was some hope. I know when I changed. I had to change also. I know when I changed. First of all, I had worked in corporate America, which is not an easy thing to do. I was in sales and marketing, which is not an easy thing to do. And I ended up being the 1% in the nation. All of that was hard work. And come home to madness. And come home to a husband who would make up the bed for me, which I should have been grateful about. He would make up the bed because he left later than me. And I'd come home and snatch the spread off the bed because he didn't do it right. I mean, he didn't do, how, don't you know how to make up a bed? What's wrong with you? Don't make up the bed. After sitting into some of those classes with the people who I worked with, the people who were providing housing and doing some of the things, after sitting and hearing what Dr. Mills was saying, really getting all into it, I remember the day that I came home from that job and went to the house. And yes, the bed was still made up wrong. But I saw Jim differently. I saw this man trying to help me. I saw him thinking about how hard I was working and the problems I was having. He was trying to make up the bed. He was trying to help me. I said to him, Jim, hey, how you doing today? Never had no so wonderful, nice, warm conversation going on. He was always in attitude. And this day he looked at me like, what is going on? He saw this different person. He saw this person with this big smile on their face. He thought
What
something was
happened to
really
you?
wrong. He couldn't get this together for himself. And so finally, after I talked to him, he laughed and he says, you seem like you're feeling good today. We laughed and talked for a while. And then I said to him, Jim, do you realize something? I want to tell you something. First, I want to thank you for making up the bed. It's really a pleasure to come home and see that the bed is made up. And he says, oh, good. And we went on and I said, but let me ask you a question. Do you know that there's a top and bottom to this bread? He said, no, what are you talking about? I said, let me show you something. And I showed him where the top was straight and the bottom was curved, and he had it backwards. I said, would you mind doing it differently the next time? He said, not at all. Not at all. Why you didn't tell me that before? I said, I don't know why I didn't tell you before, but thank you. Thank you for helping me. I knew that day that I began to even see my own family, let alone the people in the street, my own family different. I woke up. I woke up because all of this madness, I let the world get in my head. I let the problems and the situations get in my head. So how am I going to help somebody else when I can't distinguish between how I'm thinking and how I'm living that takes somebody else. So that was the beginning of it for me. And our whole world changed, not only my family, but the community itself. We did some good work. We provided housing, we provided training and motivation and inspiration to people who had not seen that before. That work went really well. It really did. And people began to put shades up at their windows and people began sending their kids to school so that the whole community became a warmer, more resilient, more revived community to live in. So I'm exceptionally thankful for having met the principals, Dr. Mills and all of the others I've met over the years. Just to really, I mean, because the church thing was one thing, but just to put it out there in the street the way we could talk about it was just very different. So that's my short, quick story.
Thank you. Thank you, Joyce. Thank you, Cynthia, and thank you, Lloyd. That was wonderful. It's just so inspiring just to hear when you discovered this for yourself. I love what
Yeah.
you have to catch the ball before you run with it.
Mhm.
You've got to get this for yourself before you have anything to give to anyone else. And that's one of the main tenets, I think, of the three principles. Understanding, whether you're a therapist or a social worker or a company executive, that your own mental health is what allows you to see the health in other people, to see that potential that's there in all of us. So, but I want to give those of you who are on the call today a chance to ask Lloyd or Joyce or Cynthia any questions that you have, or make any comments that you had listening to them that you want to, what you heard, or what you want to know about. Does anybody have? Just raise your hand on the bottom thing where it has reactions. If you just go to raise the hand, I'll call on you. Going once. Oh, Nick Scott. There he is.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for calling on me, Joe. The stories you all just shared are so amazing and inspiring, and I'm really curious how, I mean, I can understand that the parents went to the workshop and then the community's kind of built and becomes more awakened, like you were saying, Joyce. But what were like the nuts and bolts of like how you got people there? And then what was kind of like the format of the type of workshops that really worked in these communities?
I think that that's the interesting piece, because we didn't come to them with paper and books and diagrams and easels and blackboards, and we didn't come like that. We came. We brought all of ourselves. We brought ourselves to the group. And the biggest piece of it is after we were able to gather people into a space, we listened. particularly, and in those kinds of community, in our kinds of community that we were working in and talking about, people is always telling them what to do. You ought to do it this way. You ought to have it this way. But what do you really want? And one day I told one of the people, I said, well, wait a minute. Why are you asking me that question? Why are you asking us that question? What do you think we want? We want what you want. We want the same thing you will want. We want decent places to live. We want safe streets. We want education for our children. We want to be able to go to the doctor and get health care. The same thing you want is what we want. Why do you see us different? What is it so different about what you think we want than what you want? We want the same thing you want. I want my mother, who lives in the same building with me, to be able to go to the store, and that there is a store, number one, that sells decent food, like a supermarket that she can click and buy fruits and vegetables if that's her choosing. I want a school where it's safe to send the child to school, and the child don't want to feel like they don't want to go because the gangs are going to get them. I want to be able to walk. I want to be able to talk. I want to be able to be with I want the same thing you want. So how do we get there? How do we get there? Listen to us, because I bet you if we begin to talk to these folks, they can tell you exactly how they want to get there. And that's what they did.
That's great.
Thank
Nikon, you had your hand up first, and then Keith. Do you like to?
I did, but then I saw Keith Blevins' name, and I'd really like to hear what he has to say first.
This is Keith Blevins. You want to unmute yourself, buddy? My oldest, dearest friend who dragged me to hear Sid Banks the first time.
Wow.
And introduced me to my wife of 39 years.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
So I pay homage to you, great Dr. Keith Blevins.
Rock star, rock star.
Well, I just want to say thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. It's always so moving to my heart to hear what the principals have done for people, and I totally agree with everything everybody said, that there's a common thread or denominator of spirit, you know, and seeing the spirit beyond the circumstances and situations, and connecting to it and talking about it, and again too, that it could be not religious, but spiritual.
Yes. Yes.
And to know that that's just as
Powerful.
just as powerful. Sorry, I'm going to cry. So I want to thank you all for that. Those stories about that truth, where everybody's truth is the same, and knowing that and seeing that and living our lives that way, what that means for what that means for us, and then what that means for others we touch is just fabulous. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Keith.
Thank you.
Nikon.
Yeah, how much time do we
Hard
have,
act to
Joe?
follow there.
How much time, so I know which question to pick? How much time do we have?
We have about 5 minutes.
Okay, I'll pick the small question. And thank you to Mr. Lloyd and Ms. Stennis and Mrs. Davis for sharing. I was so curious, because it occurred to me that resistance is universal, because in my communities in Thailand, we have the same thing where you go into communities and like, who are you to make change? And like, I was like, oh, everybody has that, no matter where you are.
Yeah. Mhm.
And I wondered how you overcame that first kind of wall, because to me it seemed like that was the hardest thing to overcome, the kind of the prejudice on their side and resistance. And I get where they're coming from. It's really coming from fear, like who are you, like, can you really help me? And because all these other people have said, like, how did you overcome that challenge?
I'm going to say something, then I'm going to shut up and let Cynthia and Lloyd say, but that's a good question. But here's the answer, as far as I can see. People who are growing and going through stuff, they can tell right off the bat who you are. Would you agree, Cynthia, Lloyd? They can tell. It does. They are the least group of people who will look at the color of your skin or how much money you got or whatever. There's that spiritual thing you talk about. There's that feeling. There's a feeling that you walk with. There's something that about you, and it's not whether you go polka dot or purple or green. It has nothing to do with that when you come into these communities. You come with this whole being of willingness, and it doesn't matter to them. It's only when you show that other side where you don't know how to help. It's only when you know that, like, I'm better than you, and I'm looking down on you, and you don't want what, you don't need what I got. You don't need you don't need a good store. You don't need. So I'm just coming because you need to do it this way. If you come with that, then you're gonna get a total turn off.
That's right.
But if you come with an open mind and willingness to hear and willingness to listen, and don't be afraid of me because I'm not gonna kill you. Everybody that walks and looks like and live, everybody who lives in those neighborhoods are not criminals. And just like you need to know the good guys from the bad guys, we know the good guys from the bad guys on the other side.
I couldn't have said it.
I agree. Oh, go ahead.
I just, I think the most important thing for me was getting an understanding for myself, and just operating within, my understanding. And it was like, to me, it was sort of like my good feelings. If I could, my good feelings was on Channel 5, and that universal, it was a universal Channel 5. So if I'm seeking everybody else's Channel 5, I got it. I could get it. I could communicate with other people. I could communicate with anybody that, even if they have a difference of opinion than I have, if I could connect on that same connection, which is easy to do, even if you disagree with me or don't like what I say, it's like I could still have a conversation with you. And I think that's the thing that, like Joyce was saying, people look for authenticity. They look for you to be, if you're there to help, they can tell it.
They can tell.
They can tell.
Okay.
They can tell when you're pretentious and prejudgmental. You don't even have to say anything. They see.
And you could be the same
Oh, yes.
color. You could be the same color walking into that area.
That's right.
And look like everybody in the room. And he said, what?
You be in your same house.
Your spouse, you with your own spouse.
And your own spouse, right? And she know it. She know what's, my wife know when I'm tripping or when I'm coming for real.
You have to be truthful.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
When you're dealing
That's
with
the
people,
truth.
you have to be
That's
truthful.
the truth, Cynthia.
You let them know what you're there for. You let them know that you're there for them. If you're not feeling good, tell them, say, look, I really don't feel good and I shouldn't even be here today, but I got something to do and I want to do it and I want to help you guys. When you're truthful, they'll start telling you some things
That's right.
that can help you.
They got a
And
PhD.
you know, and I'll tell them, thank you. Never feel that you're so up here that you can't accept what another person say, because it can help you.
Mhm.
And I remember, and when Joyce was talking about they can smell the person, when they come in about their attitudes, I remember the parents wanted to go back to school and get their GED. Okay. And this certain school, well, this certain uh school that would come in, this certain, what do you call it? The
Counselors,
huh?
recruiters, counselors.
No,
Tutors.
the university that came in, this was the only one that was around. And we told them that we had 13 parents that wanted to come, that wanted to get their GED. The first thing they said was, they're not gonna show up, maybe one or two. They already had an opinion about Homestead Garden. And you know what some of the parents say? You see what I'm talking about? They don't want to come here anyway. So I told them, let me talk to them and we're going to get back with them. So we had the supervisor and a couple of other teachers or whatever to come to meet with them. And we just laid down the line. I told them to be courteous, be respectful, have your agenda already. Let them know what happened the last couple of times that they came here for you guys. So they was diplomatic. They told them what their names were, how many kids they had, and told them, okay, when you send your teachers here, they tell us what day that they want to come to do the classes. That's not a good time for us. Some of us work, some of us have our kids. You know, they gave them all the different things that was an issue about the date and the time. So the supervisor said, well, okay, well, if you can guarantee me at least 10 people that will show up, tell me what days you want to have it. They told them a different day. We'll just say Wednesday and Fridays at 5 o'clock. So you can see the facial on the face of some of those teachers, like 5 o'clock. I'm not gonna get 5 o'clock. You know, you can tell. So she told, and then the supervisor said, okay, so we'll do 5 o'clock that day, and you guarantee me you're gonna have 10 people. And they all raised their hand, and it was 13 people. So they got back with them and told them they would contact me. They didn't have any three of those teachers. It was another teacher who was willing, who cared, and they came there and they listened to, what the parents had to say.
Yeah.
The very first day, they asked the parents, tell me, what are some of the subjects that you are falling back on, that you need help in? And when they told them, the 2 or 3 subjects, then that's how they made their arrangements. But
Good.
that's
How it's
again,
supposed to be.
we
You know,
can't come in. If
sorry.
you want to change a community, you got to stop that telling people what they got to do on your own time. If you want to see them to be successful, you need to hear what some of their agenda, what their problems are.
I think Joe is trying to get our.
Sorry, Cynthia. We're over our time, and the
Oh, okay.
recording is going to automatically stop. So
Okay.
where that happens, I just want to thank all of you and all of you who are participating today for sharing from your heart. It was just so beautiful. Thank you so much. And I hope I see you all back again next in 3 weeks. Michael Neo, and then after that, we're going to have 3 people are working with school systems, since the school's about ready to start in September. So we'll be having a whole conversation about education. But so if Mika, if you want to ask a quick question, I can unmute you. But thank you all for coming, and I hope to see you on future podcasts. Yes, Mike.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, yes, Mika. Yeah, I really just wanted to say thank you. And just to say, I grew up in Indianapolis, and there I did go in and I worked in youth programs in housing projects, and I taught in an inner city school there as a kind of a permanent sub, and ran youth programs also for kids with special needs. And I just want to say how much it really, I truly resonates. You just go in there and you're authentic and real, and you just, connect with people. I'm really excited in terms of ways to sort of bring this understanding into work that I do now. And I think this time period that we're all going through now can really use it. So just thank you for all your sharing.
Thank you for having us.
Well, let's give them all a round of applause. Unmute. Yeah, unmute.